Hello, dear students. Welcome to session 2 of Unit 3, which is on objectives and approaches to teaching current affairs. We have set out 3 objectives to be achieved by the end of this section. Objective 1, you should be able to state at least 3 objectives of teaching current affairs. Objective 2, identify at least 2 approaches to organizing current affairs. 3, should be able to explain at least 2 approaches for organizing current affairs. Dear students, you all know that before we do or we engage learners in the teaching and learning activities, there must be objective or objectives. So objectives are desired outcomes or intentions that put the teaching and learning process into perspective. Therefore, before we talk about current affairs in the classroom, there are a number of reasons why we do that as part of social studies lesson. We are going to look at some of the objectives. There are many. We can't finish all of them. Just start, and on your own, you discuss other objectives with your colleagues. Objective 1, integrating current affairs in the social studies teaching will help create awareness, understanding, and interest in the problems and issues of the day. When we discuss the current affairs in the classroom with learners, it generates awareness. Learners are aware of what is happening in their locality, nationally, internationally, and outside the country. For example, with the issue about coronavirus pandemic, learners need to know some of the information. When the learners get it, they also carry it out there into the community. It creates or generates awareness and understanding and interest. Then 2, it helps to expand popular information for the benefit of all. The current happenings, it needs to be what? Share with everybody. Let's look at democratic values. It's something that everybody needs to know that now that is the best way of resolving issues. It leads to objective 3. Help people to recognize democratic values in reacting to problems and issues. We all know now you don't have to carry guns, clubs, machetes to fight because you disagree with somebody or you disagree with government or our leaders. We don't have to do that. Let's look at what happened in Nigeria. At least it was somehow peaceful election. Those who disagree, the opposition parties, they went to court to seek redress. That is the best way of resolving disagreement. That is a wind that is blowing. Democratic what? Values. Another objective for teaching or discussing current affairs in social studies is that we want to encourage learners to develop the habit of reading, listening, inquiring, or investigating. They must also observe and be informed about the current happenings around them. When you discuss current issues in the classroom, it will enable learners to develop interest in reading. They will know that tomorrow, when there is an issue, I must contribute. So without reading, without listening to news, without investigating, or without observing, you can't contribute in the classroom. So it will enable learners, or it will force learners to develop these habits. Then it will also help acquire skills in locating, organizing, evaluating information on important issues, as well as evaluating the judgment of others on these issues. When we are to discuss current affairs, learners will have to locate, for example, what happened in Turkey and Syria. With the help of the globe, the learners will locate exactly where the event took place. They will organize and evaluate the information as it relates to what happens. It will also help to develop their mental faculties in the democratic culture and other topical issues orally and in writing. The learners will have to discuss the issues, evaluate the issues, either orally or in a written form. Without thinking critically, you can't do all this. So, dear learners, these are some of the benefits or objectives of discussing current issues or current affairs in the classroom. I'll leave the rest with you so you go and discuss it amongst yourself. Let us now turn our attention to the approaches to organizing current affairs. How do we organize current affairs into our social studies teaching? There are a number of ways. We shall look at them briefly. The first one is isolated topic approach. Isolated topics approach. In this approach, current affairs are studied separately. We can study them as just small portion of the period we're supposed to teach, maybe a few minutes, then we stop. In this manner, the current issue may not relate to what we are teaching as a topic in the social studies. You have to understand that. We just pick it and discuss it. It may not relate to what we are teaching at that particular time in the classroom. Now let's look at the second approach, that is correlated approach. In this approach, the teacher will attempt to relate or correlate the current affairs with the social studies topic. So if I'm teaching about, for example, governance in social studies, so I'll look at, are there governance issues happening within the country, in Africa, or globally? Then I will use that, what is happening and people are talking about, and relate it to my topic. That is correlated approach. Then we also have the third point or approach as integrated approach. Sometimes the teacher will fuse current affairs and social studies content into integrated or into our lessons. So the social studies content can be the topic, and then we use the current event or affairs to what illustrate it. So in other cases, we can decide that, or the teacher can decide that the current affairs may be the basis for the topic. So then we use history and the social science content are used to explain the current issue. The fourth one is a survey approach, and this approach tends to be the most commonly used approach of discussing what is happening. This top this type of organization gives good coverage, but otherwise is not recommended as it tends to be superficial, inaccurate, and artificial. So when you say survey, you understand what survey means. You look for, or you listen, you investigate and see which are the current issues being discussed globally. You pick them one by one, pick them here and there. The fifth approach has to do with continuing issue approach. In this, we pick the current affairs topics or issues or problem, and then we follow it up till the end of the event. So it goes every week, what happened. You report on every week what happened. The following week, what happened, until the issue is finally resolved. For instance, when the earthquake placed in Turkey and Syria, from day one, it lasted for a number of weeks. People were talking about it, people were giving updates, the number of people who died on a daily basis until the rescue mission was brought to an end. So as far as the event is unfolding, we also keep on what? Reporting on it. Just like the coronavirus as well. It started 2019 later part and went through to 2020, and still we have some issues, packets of issues as far as the pandemic is concerned. The last approach is the combinations approach. So you must be aware that you can combine two or more of the approaches in one lesson. So you can see that you can combine isolated topics approach and correlated approach or integrated approach or survey approach. That is a combination of any or mixture of the 6 or 5 approaches. So in this session, by way of summary, we have outlined a number of objectives for teaching current affairs. Again, we also identify some of the approaches of organizing current affairs in social studies lesson. I hope you have enjoyed this session. Stay with me while we look at the next session. But then, can we take the following self-assessment tests? 1. State at least 2 objectives for studying current affairs in social studies. List 3 approaches to organizing current affairs in social studies. Thank you.